Michael didn't wake up panicked. That's what surprised him. There was no spike in anxiety, no racing thoughts, no immediate sense of dread, just a quiet heaviness. The kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that feels like gravity rather than fear. It was already there when he opened his eyes. He lay still for a moment, noticing how familiar it felt. Not alarming, not urgent, just present. In the past, this is where his mind would have started scanning for the problem. Did I sleep wrong? Am I falling back into something? Shouldn't I be past this by now? But this morning, something in him didn't rush. He noticed the light in the room, the sound of the house settling, his own breath slower than his thoughts. And then a different realization arrived. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Nothing is wrong. Not in the dismissive way we say it to make discomfort disappear, but in a truer way. Nothing is wrong. This is just the season I'm in. That understanding didn't lift the heaviness, but it softened the way he was holding it. Michael had spent so long assuming that overwhelm meant failure, that if something lingered, it meant that he hadn't done the work well enough. But what if overwhelm wasn't evidence of collapse? What if it was the evidence of contact? Contact with a world that doesn't pause, contact with uncertainty that doesn't resolve neatly, contact with caring deeply in a time that asks a lot of the heart. Michael realized that he'd been treating this feeling like a mistake, something to correct, eliminate, outgrow, and in so doing, he's been quietly turning against himself. That morning, standing in the kitchen with his coffee cooling in his hands, he didn't try to make the feeling go away. He simply let it be what it was, a season. Not a sentence, not an identity, not a verdict, just a season. There was something relieving about that framing. Seasons don't mean something has gone wrong, they mean something is happening. Winter isn't a failure of summer, dusk isn't a failure of daylight, and this, whatever this was, didn't require fixing. It required companionship. Michael noticed how much pressure he'd been placing on himself to feel better before continuing with his life. As if clarity was a prerequisite for movement. As if steadiness had to come first. But life hasn't stopped asking things of him. The day would still unfold, messages would still arrive, the world would still be loud, uncertain, and tender. So he tried something new. He stopped asking himself how to get out of the feeling and started asking how to move through the day without abandoning himself. That question changed everything. It shifted the focus from resolution to relationship. Instead of demanding relief, he offered himself permission. Permission to move more slowly than his thoughts. Permission to let the heaviness sit in the background without narrating it. Permission to continue without optimism. There was a quiet dignity in that. Michael wasn't powering through. He wasn't giving up. He was staying. And in staying, something subtle happened. The feeling didn't disappear, but it stopped being the center of everything. It became context instead of crisis. He realized that overwhelm doesn't always ask us to do less. Sometimes it asks us to do things differently. With less urgency, with fewer assumptions, with more honesty about our limits. That morning didn't end with a breakthrough. There was no revelation that tied things up cleanly. But there was a sense of internal alignment, a quiet agreement with himself that said, I don't need to be somewhere else to keep going. And maybe that's the most important beginning. Not fixing the season, not rushing its end, but learning how to live inside it with gentleness. If you're listening and recognizing yourself here, the lingering weight of the absence of crisis, but the presence of strain, know this. You are not late. You are not regressing. You are not failing some invisible test. You are in a season, and seasons don't require judgment, they require presence. We will take the next steps together. For now, let this be enough.